There have been questions in Star Trek Adventures, not all of which we've had time to discuss during our periods of table talk, for one reason or the other. So I think that's an important reflection to include in the reflections on Questions of Duty, Episode 1. For my part, as the Game Master, my evaluation, looking back over this episode, I see that the way that I will be spending threat must change. If the way the players play doesn't change, the way I spend threat must change. And it's nice that there are so many options for me to consider. So, for example, in the previous campaign that I ran, and in tests with the system that I've run, and in playing the game myself, the use of an expanded complication range has not really been a feature. It's something I keep in my mind, right? But my thoughts about it have been primarily to relate an expanded complication range to the specific situations that have arisen in a scene. Like, for example, I'm driving and someone has driven up right up to my bumper and flicked their lights at me, expecting me to get out of their way. When there's a perfectly viable passing lane for them to move into. It just doesn't make any sense. So if you're noticing an expression on my face, it's tied entirely to the nuttiness of some drivers. But in all seriousness, I have felt that an expanded complication range, for me, how I have been using it, is as a response to things going awry. So you'll see an example of that in Questions of Duty, where a complication is generated because of the situation, and the complication range is expanded because of the situation. But I have been reserving it for other things, making lethal attacks, like at the end of Questions of Duty, the combat scene in the hallway. The villain is using, the Orion is using a disruptor weapon. He's attacking to kill. No holds barred. He's trying to fight his way out. Doesn't care about, this whole ship is supposed to have been blown up, so he doesn't care about the lives of the people on board. So I've been using them for more mechanical things, but it looks like it would be more beneficial if I use them to create the likelihood of more things going wrong. This will give me the opportunity to bring out the ship's long service trait. So mostly that's appeared as an advantage. But it's also an aging ship. It's also overdue for refits and things like that. So there's no reason why threat can't be used to expand the complication range on roles involving specific systems within the ship. And I think that adds interest, and it prevents threat from building up to the point where I will want to use it for some dramatic turn that that could threaten to make every ending ambiguous, that could threaten to confuse the players, or where did this come from? What was this drawn from? And which means that I then have to explain when I see looks on their faces. Oh, well, you see, I spent this many thread for a reversal, and now we're not playing anymore. We're just listening to the game master talk about how he used the mechanics. This is something that needs, from this point forward, really needs to be avoided. All the stuff has been explained twice, through 2 different episodes. So continuing to talk about it in exactly the same way just builds habit. It's time to move on to the next, to step up to the next level of play. So, what I do with the tools available to me has to change. I will also need to talk about, or not talk about, I'll also need to talk about momentum less. That's on them. It's not a resource that matters to me. They know how to generate it. If they feel they need it, they know how to ask for it without asking for it. I'm not interested in can I make a difficulty 0 roll to generate some momentum situation, but I am interested in a character having a reason to do something. And if it's an interesting reason, then that should be represented by a roll, especially if there's some interesting difficulty attached to that roll. And then if it's important, right, how are they going to make sure that it's done well? All of this is role play within the context of Starfleet life aboard the Avicenna, right? So this is the direction that I need things to go. So I can facilitate that by using threat more often and differently. And I can facilitate that by stepping away from reminders of the basic levels of the system. This is something that Starfleet Adventures, the core book, did well, I felt, in that there is a separate section for the basic rules and a separate section for what they're calling the advanced rules. I'm driving over a bridge now, and rescue crews are out, and the lake that we're driving over is frozen, and there are divers. So, living in this country with the statistics that it has, we can speculate, perhaps wrongly, over the situation that those first responders are now having to deal with, and that's sad. Anyway, I think I had completed my point, so